What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Above Average Podcast, where we talk to people that are above average in mindset and action. Today, I'm here with Will, as always, and we have Taylor, who is a soon-to-be UFC fighting champion. I'm going to put those words in his mouth, and somebody that I actually served in the Army with. So we've had a couple fun times together, and today he's going to talk to us about his wrestling career, fighting, and what he's doing next. So, what's happening, man?
Thanks for having me. Actually, I was just driving one day. I think it was probably like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, man. And I was thinking, I was looking through my phone. Obviously, I'm texting and driving. Well, I shouldn't be, but, going down a back road and your page popped up. I saw the podcast. I'm like, damn, that's pretty sweet. I figured that was, a pretty good avenue for you. I think that's kind of like your calling in a way. So I wanted to reach out to you just for that, for that reasoning alone. And I figured that, if I could jump on, get more exposure with my career and what I'm doing right now. So, but I think this is like something that you're going to be really good at. I think it's something that's going to really grow for you. So I'm excited.
Thanks, man. Yeah. I mean, we've done together now this season. We're like on podcast 14 or 15. This might be 15.
I thought this was maybe 17.
17?
I don't know.
Oh, shoot, maybe.
I don't know. Maybe I'm off there. At this point, we're in it for sure. But
yeah, but I appreciate it. It's like combining a lot of things I like. I mean, I like talking to people in avenues that I enjoy. Obviously, this podcast geared towards people in fitness as its kind of core, but we appreciate when people find us now. So
I think a big thing with you is the fact that you've experienced so many different things. You know what I mean? I mean, it's kind of crazy to think. I mean, just knowing you, for the past 5 to 7 years, all the experiences you've been through and the deployments and then obviously the divorce and everything like that. That's
yeah, man.
There's a lot of life right there. So a lot of people don't know that about you, but I think that you bring a different perspective, and I think that's essential for having a podcast. I mean, you got to be able to relate to people, and I feel like that's something that you're gonna be able to do super well. I mean, with your media, every time I've ever seen you, you've always treated everybody with respect. You've always went out of your way, and you're kind of just like a step above them intellectually. You're a little bit smarter. So
thank you. And that's coming from a guy. That's coming from a guy that's a meadow to an infantry guy. So that's the highest of compliments right there. Except for maybe like, wow, dude, you're really good at running. You can shoot really well and do some land nav. but yeah, man. I mean, I think the 4 years in college were like, obviously, like people think they're the most pivotal when you're in it, and then like the 4 years after school was like the most life-changing 4 years of my life, and that's right when I met you. So you were like in college, and I was coming
First
back.
Victory Films, yeah.
Yeah, man.
I saw that hat.
That's awesome. That's awesome that you rock that.
Yeah.
But so yeah, let's dive into it. So like we met at Clarion, and I was coming back from deployment. You were like a cadet at the time, but you were wrestling. So like I had known you from being a cadet, at least kind of in passing, because I wasn't a cadet anymore. I was just like going to grad school, and then I had met you, and yeah, I mean, from what I understood, you were dominating at Clarion, like a lot of wrestlers are in the state of Pennsylvania. Clarion's pretty well known. So how did you get into wrestling, fighting? Have you done multiple things growing up?
Yeah, I mean, as young as I can remember, I've always been drawn to combat sports. My dad was a Division I football player at St. Francis. I started at Lock Haven and then transferred. But he kind of just pushed us, and he was really intense with me and my brothers growing up. So he had a rough upbringing. Yeah, I guess you could call it like, coming from nothing in a way, right? So I mean, we were pretty blessed growing up, but I mean, he definitely was hard on us. Definitely made us fight a lot. So we were drawn to more physical sports. Football made sense to us. Collision sports made sense. Wrestling just came natural to me. I started at 5 years old. The reason I started was because I wanted to box. My parents didn't want me to get brain damage that young. So they put me in wrestling.
That's very fair. Yeah. That's very understandable.
Also, like looking back on it now as a professional MMA fighter, I think that they made the best decision, because when you look at, the level of Pennsylvania wrestling, the prestige alone with it, I mean, this is the hotbed, this is the mecca of the United States. And when you can, compete with those guys growing up, and you have the ability to go to all the competitions and the exposure that you get through Pennsylvania wrestling, I mean, it's way better than boxing growing up. So, number one, I didn't get brain damage, I guess.
Yeah.
As of yet, that I know of, and I got a lot of good reps in wrestling, which is the most dominant martial art. So, I've been doing it since I was 5 years old. Started boxing about 14, 15 years old. Competed in the Golden Gloves when I was 19, 20. And I've been doing Nogi Jiu-Jitsu since I was about 19 as well. I used to drive to Pittsburgh every Monday and Wednesday after wrestling and work out at the Mat Factory with Isaac Greeley from about 20 to 23 until I went to Buffalo and finished my grad year. And then when I came back from Buffalo, I went right to Indio and trained with Danilo. So, I've kind of prioritized my training, and just like anything else, it's something that is going to save you, when you're doing this. When you're in the cage or you're competing in boxing, it's not like I'm a school teacher. It's serious, and you have to prioritize your training, and you have to train with the best guys. And it's an investment. Yeah. So I'm pretty blessed to be around the guys I've been around in my career.
I've dabbled with jiu-jitsu, very limited, the last 2 years I started to get into it, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, man, I don't really know how to, I know how to defend myself. I grew up doing Taekwondo. It's a striking sport. It's very, it's only used for specific things, but it gave me good awareness. Going into jiu-jitsu was there was so much to it. Now I was like, wow, this is very eye-opening. So what's your take on wrestling versus jiu-jitsu? To just explain it to our group and our audience, because I think it looks similar. If you don't know what you're looking at, you're like, all right, two dudes just rolling around. What's the difference?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah. From my perspective.
That's a hard one, right? Because there's different levels to it, and there's, wrestling isn't, you can't really hurt somebody. You can't break their arm. You can't knock them out cold. You can, and there's guys that do it. They're usually labeled dirty wrestlers. Wrestling is kind of built on the idea of athleticism and physicality. Physicality wins. That's what we were growing up. That's what I was told. Heavy hands, being mean, always in the guy's face, pushing the pace. If you're up 2-1, you're trying to score. You're trying to make it 4-1. You're trying to dominate, trying to, just keep adding to your score. There's very rarely do you find wrestlers that until today's day and age, I guess, there's a new era of wrestling coming out. I think it's because jiu-jitsu is playing into it, and kids are doing both growing up. But, as a kid, when I was growing up, it was always dominate. So you don't think practically sometimes. Mm-hmm. If I'm up 2-1, I don't have to score and make it 4-1. I can rest on my laurels and win 2-1, right? Or win to win. So that's one thing that I think kind of held me back in certain ways, but I think that's also a reason why I beat some of the guys I beat. And I've beaten a lot of guys that were, some of the best in the world, some of the best in the country, some of the best of the state. And it's a thinking man's game in a way, right? It's hard to explain, but you just have to be a step ahead. Yeah. Right. I'm doing one thing to get a reaction. And if I can get to that first, then I'm going to be, leading the dance.
I can say from experience, just for again, did a couple months of jiu-jitsu, would like to get back into it, but I got hurt, rolling with a wrestler. He was 23 years old, smaller than me. And that dude, of course, the class we were doing was a fundamental takedown class. This kid tossed me, and I was like, he just had so much power. I was like, and you roll with one person, then you switch for a little bit, and that kid had incredible power, just to take me down. But then again, on the ground, on the back, I was, I think, a little bit more body aware, and I don't have the habits that he has, right? So I was just learning from a few days onward, to that point. And I could see where he was uncomfortable, but his power was still phenomenal. It just blew my mind.
And a lot of times it's control.
Yeah.
That's one thing that will separate guys from being great and guys being average, right? That sounds like an average wrestler to me, right? Because he's trying to squeeze everything so tight. He's insecure. You can feel an insecurity as soon as you grab a hold of somebody. It's kind of crazy, but when you roll with somebody the first time, you can feel if they're going through something in their life. You can feel if they're happy, if they're sad, if you know what I mean.
Really?
I feel like you can, because the way they approach you, there's certain people that are passive. They want to play guard, they want to pull. They're okay with you being on top of them, and they're just going to play the game. And then there's some guys you go against that you have to watch, because they're going to try to grab you as hard as they can, right? That they don't understand that you're training. Yeah. Some people have to go to work the next day.
Right.
Not everybody is professional athlete. Not everybody's a professional fighter or even an amateur fighter. So, you know, when you're doing martial arts, you have to look at it from a perspective of safety. You have to look at it as, you know, kind of value it for what it is, man. It's self-defense, right? So, but that's where a lot of wrestlers struggle, and that's where they struggle with learning jiu-jitsu. The ones that, you know, really separate themselves from the pack are the ones that put themselves in, you know, disadvantages. They put themselves in positions that, you know, that they're uncomfortable with. I mean, but it kind of translates to anything, I think, in life. I mean, if you want to get better at anything, you have to put yourself where you're uncomfortable, and then you have to find a way out of it. So just having that perspective with my wrestling, I think that's one thing that separated me. It's one thing that allowed me to really dive into jiu-jitsu, and personally, I think I'm better at jiu-jitsu and the gi than I am at wrestling, just because there's so many more options, right?
Yeah.
There's so many more options. There's so many more options to move your body. You know, there's no pins in jiu-jitsu. So, I mean, I can be flat on my back for a second. I can, you know, regain my senses and think about where his arms are at, where his legs are at, how I'm going to use my feet as a lever, how I'm going to use my shins, you know, me just to pin something here, just so he moves it another way so that I can advance my position. I mean, I can kind of dive into it pretty deep there, but I guess to wrap it up and to bring it back to where we were at, you're not going to find many wrestlers that have that mindset because there's not many guys that honestly know jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So you have to find a source, like a real jiu-jitsu. And the problem with that now is that it's becoming kind of like karate was, right? With the Bruce Lee era of karate, it blew up in America. Anytime America gets anything, it's monopolized. Right? And the way that my coach, Danilo Belfort, when I was training under him, you know, his mindset, his approach was amazing. I mean, he's second to none. His dad was the only red belt in judo and jiu-jitsu in the world. He's on the lineage tree. He's like one of the founders.
No kidding.
He's a Vale Tudo legend, 350 plus fights, no holds barred in Brazil, worked for the president of Brazil, right? So this guy's got a lot of history, right? He sent me to Brazil. My first professional fight, I had Murilo Bustamante in my corner, who fought in Pride, who UFC champion from Brazil. I mean, so when you're talking about guys like that and you're learning under guys like that, the perspective changes. But I realized how lucky I was to just be around a guy that I could go up and say, you know, why did the Gracies do this? You know, and he might generally had the answer for it, like he knew, regardless if people believe it or not. Like he knew. I mean, he knows them. You know,
that's wild.
The Gracie name is using as an example. It could have been any Brazilian that was, you know, tied to the sport and the growth of jiu-jitsu in America. Yeah. But to kind of get back to that, it's like a McDonald's, right? There's a McDonald's on every corner in America. But you're never going to remember a McDonald's that you go to in Omaha, Nebraska, but you'll remember the restaurant you went to in Omaha, Nebraska that was like a hole in the wall that was amazing, right? And that's kind of like the way you got to look at jiu-jitsu now. And it's hard. It's hard to kind of sift through who knows what they're doing and who doesn't. But, you know, luckily as a wrestler that, you know, wrestled at the highest level of Scholastic, you know, in the NCAA Division I, I was able to kind of just roll right into straight Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I mean, from the source. First thing he said to me and my brother when we walked in was, I don't want to see you on top of anybody. I don't want to stop. You're on your back. Like if we were on top of somebody in a closed guard or in a half guard, he would come up and like smack us in the head. You know, my brother Tanner couldn't figure it out, dude. He was just like, he would get so mad at Tanner because he would just go in there and just like try to, you know, do the typical wrestler, and just squeeze. And it's like, you know, this guy's got a purple belt, but I beat him. You know, it's like that mindset of, it just because he has this doesn't mean that you're above him in knowledge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but it's hard when you beat somebody, you have the result. Like I can beat you, so I need what you have.
Right.
And that's where wrestlers, you know, get killed.
Have you ever tried wrestling or jiu-jitsu? Have you ever tried it all?
I have no experience in combat sports at all.
You should definitely do it though.
It is very humbling. I'll tell you that much.
About that for a few years now, and like I've always, I don't know, like I've very minimal interest in boxing. And I say minimal meaning like if I wanted to try something, that's what I would try. But I've just never like gone out of my way to like give it a go. And like I see the value in having experience in self-defense, in that sense. Whatever route you're gonna take, like I think it's something that you should be experienced in. But no, I've just never done it. The only experience I have is seeing the wrestlers at Pitt and like going and watching their matches. Like that's the most I've seen of anything like that. So
it is like it's
amazing. It's the best thing ever.
I was like decently conditioned, but the first class I went to, we only rolled for 5 minutes. Maybe 5 minutes. And I was like wrecked. I was like, oh man. And I was sore the next day. I was sore in like weird areas. And I'm like, dude, I can deadlift like 400 pounds. What the hell is wrong with me? But I was sore in like my neck and like these weird little muscles. But during the class, I'm like, well, I'm pretty gassed.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit.
It's funny you say that because that's what we talked about with Ish, when we were talking about like, we were talking about lifting and how like with a deadlift, like you're always going to lift the exact same way. But in these sports where you're in like these positions, like you can't replicate those positions from like a training perspective when it comes to just weights. Like
you can, but it sucks.
Yeah. Like,
horrible.
It's not, it goes against what like lifting is because you got to lift a certain way to keep yourself safe, but like you can't always, I guess, do that, it's like, lifting, deadlifting with a rounded spine. Like you could find yourself in a position with a rounded spine on a mat, but to then go replicate that in the weight room with 400 pounds, like that's like, it's a different thing.
But why would you lift 400 pounds? That's where the disconnect, I think, with martial arts or just combat sports in general comes into play with lifting. It's like, why would you do that with 400 pounds?
Yeah.
I'm only competing. Who am I going to run into in the street?
That's true.
That's 400 pounds.
Yeah.
Like, oh, fuck, grizzly bear? What's a grizzly bear with more than 400 pounds? But, realistically, you're only going to run into people that are 150 to 250 pounds.
Yeah.
So you don't need it, and then you only have to lift it one time. So we're not talking about the volume that you utilize in a weight room. So you're not doing 5x5.
Yeah. Now you're talking about muscular endurance, basically.
Yeah, I might get on one shot and lift it and sky it. You know what I mean? And he might not get off his back the whole time. So now, granted, you always prepare for that to happen for him to escape. But realistically, I think that there's a big disconnect with lifting and combat sports. I don't think it's as necessary as people think it is.
Yeah.
I think the guy that can move his body better, the guy that's thinking. Now, granted, you can't be fragile.
Yeah.
But I don't think if you're training, consistently that you're going to be fragile as a man.
Yeah.
Like in like a lot of ways, I felt fragile there, and like I normally don't. Like in a gym and stuff. Yeah.
Especially once you learn how to invert. And I think the biggest thing is tight grip, loose arms. That's what I try to do. And just I try to control the points of contact. So if we're in the gi and I'm on bottom, like my first go-to is spider guard. Mm-hmm. That's what I like to play the most. Or I go underhooks and I get my feet in butterfly hooks. I want to get myself as close to him as possible. I want to take away his threats immediately. And his threats could be in a self-defense scenario that I'm thinking, or they could be in a sport jiu-jitsu sense that I'm thinking. Ultimately, controlling the hands and the feet. If I have grips on your hands, you have 2 points of contact with your feet. Mm-hmm. Right? I have 4 points to your 2. Right? I'm controlling you. So, just like that systematic approach, if you take that into jiu-jitsu, it might not work right away. It probably won't, especially if you're coming off the street and you've never rolled or you never wrestled. I've been blessed with 22 years of wrestling in the state of Pennsylvania on top of any other training that I did. So, kind of going into it, it was an easier transition than it would be for you, but you might not have, like you said, you might not have bad habits that I have, or that I had to train out of. And really, it's pretty simple shit.
Yeah.
When you look at it from an outside perspective, if you're just willing to commit to it and move your body the way it should move and not resist what somebody's telling you, that's a lot of the problem with guys getting good at any martial art. Somebody tells them that knows what they're doing, and they either don't want to do it because they get too tired, or they don't want to do it because they don't think that it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
true.
can see that. I mean, being a blank slate with anything, like if you have no,
Yeah, and then you imagine doing it in a combat sport where there's egos and people are like trying to size you up. It's like, well, I bench press, 450 pounds. I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like, it's not practical.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's not practical. But
Well, and like what's funny is I say the words unlike the gym. In most circumstances, unlike the gym, when you're like rolling with a person and you're kind of feeling like a little bit of like panic, like you're caught and you don't know what to do, your brain like kind of turns off. But the gym, that doesn't really happen. Your brain doesn't turn off when you're trying to deadlift really heavy. I mean, it does, but not in a panic sense.
Yeah.
And that was weird for me because I'm like, I've always done sports that like I was in control. So even though like I was diving at a high level and doing gymnastics at a national level too, I was in control the whole time. So even if I lost control, I could regain it, but somebody else was taking my control away. And I was like, whoa, shit, I don't know what to do here,
It's you against the weights or you against yourself, but you against another person, that's completely different.
Yeah, so like that little panic, your brain kind of turns off and you're like, oh shit, I wasn't using my legs. But then you only know when someone tells you. Like a coach will watch and be like, you weren't using your legs. You're like, you're right, I wasn't. But you don't see it during, you see it after.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know how you train that without just
tape
fucking
yourself
reps.
sometimes. Tape yourself and just so that you can see your mistakes and your errors. You got to see how you're moving sometimes, like before. I mean, like it always helps having an outsider tell you. Like if there's two guys rolling and there's a guy coaching, like you're gonna get better if the guy that's on that side knows what he's talking about. Like,
Yeah.
Right. But ultimately, if like you might have to be training sometimes without a coach or without supervision or guidance, right? So you got to tape yourself, take it upon yourself, and self-study is the best form of learning, I think, in general. And it's a kind of an opportunity when you're alone training to get creative and develop your own style. But I think the thing that a lot of people miss is like when you're diving, what are you doing that you don't even realize you're doing?
Oh yeah, there's
Every
tons
time
of
you
stuff.
come up, like, I mean, I guess I'm thinking swimming, but right, you're controlling your breath. I mean, breath work is huge. It's huge in jiu-jitsu and wrestling.
Yeah.
I don't realize it when I'm rolling because I've been doing it since I was 5 years old. Holy hell, I could wrestle before I could read and write. You know what I mean? Like I know it so well that, I mean, if I'm approached, I can take somebody down in like a matter of seconds. But it's subconscious. I don't even
Right.
know I'm
Yeah.
doing it,
Of
right?
course. And what's funny though is like you would probably learn quickly, but you would also learn from watching. Like, so like I started watching a lot of jiu-jitsu things when I was going, and then I watched a UFC fight and I'm like, oh, that guy doesn't know jiu-jitsu that well. Like I could see it in the fight. And I was like, oh my God, I actually processed that. I'm like, I can tell he doesn't like know how to do jiu-jitsu as well. Granted, there's other variables, like he's getting punched, but I watched one fight and I'm like, oh, that dude. And I looked him up and his background wasn't that. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm fucking
you definitely
learning how to do it by way of just watching good people doing it myself. And then I started to notice it. So it's pretty interesting when you start to figure out a little pieces of it, but it's funny because like you learn like a little bit, there's like just an endless amount of shit because like I've learned like 3 things just barely. And I'm like leg lock, still no idea how to do that even close. I don't even think they would let me touch that for months and months, still.
Which I don't agree with. But,
Yeah.
Because I think that a leg lock is the same as an arm submission. I mean,
Yeah.
what's the difference between your ankle and your wrist? I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to break a bone either way if you don't know how to control
That's true. Yeah.
right? The biggest thing I think that people look at in all combat sports, I guess I don't look at it in other sports as much because I'm not as well versed other than football, but I look at principles and concepts. I don't look at techniques. I don't think that technique is just there's no flow. Okay, I can't make a flow chart from one technique. It stops there, right? But concepts and principles are universal. They just kind of they roll into each other, right? And that's where you find out like when you're really going to hit a new level. Like you're really going to elevate your game when you understand that if I just keep my elbows in, my head up, my knees bent, my butt down, right? Keep my hips under me the whole time. I'm gonna win 95% of the competitions, and I'm gonna be able to put myself in position to get better in training too. Because I'm in good position.
Right.
Getting to good position is essential. But when you're first starting, it's overwhelming. So it's like all you think of is like, especially in jiu-jitsu, what makes jiu-jitsu is so much better than wrestling for me is that now growing up, my dad would throw us in with anybody. I mean, my brother was a heavyweight state champion, and my older brother was a 33 and 41 pounder in college. So, you know, I have a younger brother that's huge and an older brother that's little, and then I'm in the middle. Like, we kind of wrestled each other growing up. We wrestle anybody. I don't care if he was a heavyweight. I didn't care if he was a 25 pounder. You can get better in training no matter who your partner is. I put some of my varsity guys, when I coach them, with sixth graders that are 100 pounds, just so they don't use the power. They don't, right? Because if you get a super strong kid that's just super dominating, super physical, they'll rely on that and they'll never develop the rest of their game. So it's kind of the same with jiu-jitsu, but the thing that makes it so great is the fact that, like, you're rolling with, 50-year-old cop that's 250 pounds and 5'6", and then maybe you grab a hold of a guy that was a college basketball player and he's 6'7", 195 pounds. It's like, there's so many different types of people. It's so diverse that, like, you're just getting so many different feels that it's overwhelming at first.
It kind of replicates like the defense part of real life. Like, you are getting different people and different backgrounds, and that is one thing that I did like, despite the fact that I did get hurt from a bigger person. So I mean, there was that, but that was on me, not knowing when to, like, kind of stop and slow down. We got a sponsor from Indigo Tonics. So we had her on recently on the podcast, and we have a discount code. So this is the only way that we're going to be able to make money for the time being. And you get 10% off using the code above average for Indigo Tonics, which is mushroom tinctures. And we had these on the podcast live, and they were actually fantastic. In fact, if you want some, you can try it.
I'll try it.
You'll try it? All right.
Which one is that?
This is the awake one.
It's to sleep while we're on the
It's how would you describe it? It's kind of like taking a shot. It has like an alcohol base.
Alcohol based. Yeah. So you put that.
So you put it under your tongue.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just there?
Yep.
Under your
you
tongue,
just kind of
hold it
squeeze
there.
Yep.
Oh, I might too.
That's all right.
And,
wow. Yeah, it's definitely like.
Yeah, it's like harsh a little bit, but not in an overwhelming way.
It's herbal, which you can mix with drinks.
Definitely tastes herbal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably pretty good for you.
Yeah.
So this is
fantastic for you.
This is lion's mane mushroom, ginkgo biloba, and I don't know what bacopa is, but yeah, all.
They've been fantastic. I tried them last night.
Yeah, like it's all legit, super legit. There's one for sleep immunity and focus. That's the focus one.
Yep. Yep. That's the focus one. So now you're going to be dialed in. You're going to be zooted, as the kids say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you had this is sort of off topic, but we had just recently talked about it when we were having a break here. Who would your celebrity fight be if you had to pick a couple people? Like,
okay, well, I mean, if I
fighter celebrities, but honestly, I mean, I guess let's talk outside of that too if you want.
Any normal person.
Yeah, like any normal person.
now I gotta think here for a second. A normal person, I could fight anybody. I could fight.
I feel like you would fight anybody though. Fight any normal person.
I'm just trying to think of somebody that I don't genuinely like. It's like, man, I want to really punch that guy. I mean, I don't really have like too many names that that pop up. I mean, a lot of times when I'm talking like shit or like if I'm just saying something, I'm just like kind of spitballing. I'm just trying to get under their skin and just trying to piss them off, right? So I'm just like, I don't really have problems with too many people,
right?
Regardless of how they think about me, I'm just kind of playing a game, and it's funny, dude, just to see the way people react. Like sometimes you just put stuff out there just to, get them edged off or something. But if I had to pick one guy to fight, I mean, dude, you gotta.
I guess there's some strategy when you're picking one guy to fight.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that whole thing with Mike Tyson was awesome. That was set up. I mean, he's doing things right. I think, like in a sense of growing the sport and kind of just growing awareness for people. I mean, the things that he's doing for amateur boxing, they're pretty awesome. I mean, he's donating a lot of money. He's putting a lot of work into kids that are less fortunate, and that's kind of how amateur boxing was founded. Like, or at least the Golden Gloves was founded to stay off the streets. Policemen in the cities would train the less fortunate kids, and instead of shooting people on the street, they were just in the gym sparring. So, I mean, he's kind of doing something similar to that.
Yeah.
But having him pull out of that Mike Tyson fight, I mean, that was 100% set up, which I'm glad he did that, because now granted, Mike Tyson probably would have dusted him, but it's Mike Tyson. He's an icon. You don't fight him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You don't fight, like he's past his prime. Like you need to have respect for those guys.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that was awesome when that happened. I was like, fuck, I don't want them to fight, because I know what's the possibility of Mike Tyson actually winning that fight? Like, I don't know, dude. He's
I don't know either.
60 years old.
Yeah, I know.
I mean?
He's like legit old. I mean, he
looks good still, but like
he had such a strong punch back in the day. The dude was
Jake Paul's not bad.
What?
He's not bad.
How were? This is the perspective from like the wrestlers. Like they were wrestlers growing up in Ohio, right?
They're athletes.
He and his brother, yeah.
They're athletes.
So what was their wrestling career like that you know
good.
of?
I mean, they were solid wrestlers.
Because they're like your age, right?
Yeah.
A little older, maybe. Younger? I don't know.
Logan's the older one.
Correct.
He wrestled at Ohio.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, in the MAC. Division One. They were in our conference for Clarion. Well, Clarion left the EWL my redshirt senior year, and then when I went to Buffalo, we were in the Mid Atlantic, and we wrestled Ohio.
Yeah.
I think he was there for a year. He probably like couldn't hack it in other ways. Like he seems like a guy that would be like, dude, fuck this. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna make money.
Well, and he probably was by then. I mean,
and the game has changed now. Like now these kids are making money doing it. It's like it was not like that when we were. No, you know what I mean, it wasn't like that when you were a college athlete.
Out on that train, dude.
No, I mean, I was screwing off with YouTube in 2007, and I had a video that had like 400,000 views. It didn't mean anything. It didn't mean a single thing.
No, now it's like I mean, that's one of the biggest ways to create revenue. I mean, it's crazy.
And they started to monetize for YouTube the year I went into college, and of course, like who was going to get, like it wasn't even a big news thing that they were monetizing people. So I like went to school and I was like, I'm just going to stop doing this for a while. 3 years later, I was like, dang, man.
Yeah, now that as like a college athlete, like you could, I mean,
dude, they're making tons of money. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't imagine basketball and football, but there's wrestlers that are making $350,000 a year on top of a full ride.
Yeah.
To wrestle, I'm like, fuck, dude. Like,
yeah.
How much would that have changed?
Yeah, I mean, if you got some like entrepreneurial spirit as a college athlete, like, I mean, when I was in college, that was completely like, no, you can't do anything. You can't use your name, nothing.
No,
I couldn't
crazy.
even coach. I couldn't even coach kids and use my name.
I know they're stripping it. How about them giving Reggie Bush that Heisman Trophy back?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was pumped to see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy now. Like you can, I mean, that's the way it should have been. Like there's no reason why you should have been kind of like, tied to just, not being in control of your own image and likeness. Like that's crazy. And I mean, now like I see kids that like there's these agencies that will set up a camp for you. Like, and they'll just like, do all the branding. And then like, you're like, this, college athlete. And then they handle everything. They handle the registration, you go coach it. And then they use your name to bring people in. And like, that's an easy way to make money. And like, you couldn't do that at all.
Was not a thing, man.
Yeah.
So, what made you want to get from wrestling into MMA specifically? Like long term, was this like a long term thing? Like you've been thinking about it?
I'm not a wrestler that got into fighting. I'm a fighter that got into wrestling. That would be the way I would sum it up. I started wrestling first. That's my base, but the goal was to fight. I mean, the reason why I wrestled was to fight. That was it. It was a prerequisite for me and my brothers. When we were growing up, like 7, 8, 9 years old, the guys that were winning in the UFC were Division I wrestlers or collegiate All-Americans. I mean, they were the guys that were in the NCAA that were wrestling on the big stage. I mean, those were the guys that were winning fights. I mean, like Matt Hughes, Dan Henderson's, Daniel Cormier's. Those guys were who you looked up to. So it was a no-brainer. Let's wrestle. That's where the best fighters are. The best fighters are wrestlers. So that was the prerequisite. Once we wrestled, I mean, and my older brother always said it too, is like once we wrestled Division I, okay, I'm ready to fight now. That was our mindset.
Yeah.
Which looking back on it, I think that's a reason for some of my inconsistency with competing. Now, granted, I cut a lot of weight, which was dumb. In college, I covered from 157 to 84, so I was always bouncing around, which helped me, gain a sense of like how there's different styles at different weight classes, but also, when you're wrestling 157, and then 2 months later you're at 184. And you're competing against schools like Michigan State or, Eastern Michigan, it's hard. Those are the best guys in the country. Those are the guys that were coming out of high school, are top 10 guys in the country. And they're getting, big scholarships to wrestle. And you're just jumping around and you're not in an optimum weight class. So you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage. So I think that was a reason for some of my defeats. But also, you know, also like you always make dumb decisions when you're going through it, and you know more after the fact, but that's kind of what makes a champion in the heat of the moment. But yeah, college wrestling was a prerequisite, man. We were fighters.
Like in college, this kind of goes to like a little bit with that. Like I'm not going to say I regret like drinking and partying. I kind of do, but it was just the thing that we did. But like, I wonder how good I would have been if I would have been more focused like I am now. Like if I'd have put that into my sport, like I was still getting better and I was running on like no sleep and
I think that makes you better sometimes, right? Crazy thought, but I think now it can't be habitual.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that are out there, you know, I can't drink soda for, 15 years. Like, I don't know if that's a challenge or if you actually think that's going to actually make you better.
Right.
If that's what's going to set you apart from somebody, then dude, you got issues, I think, personally.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the guys that are doing it usually are having a lot of success. So, like, it's hard to argue with success, but I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, I mean,
That's
it's
ridiculous.
like
you're drinking Gatorade, dude.
Yeah.
Idiot. You know
That's
what I
true.
mean?
That's
Like,
true.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is your psyche. You know what I mean? How do you think? Like, are you able to? Because there's a little bit of cowboy that comes into athletics, right? When you're tired, like just because you trained or you drank water, or you drank your BCAAs, or you had your protein within your anabolic window. You know what I mean? Like, throw that shit out the window when you're tired and you want to quit. You know?
Right.
That's why they do that. The training that they do for Navy SEALs and Green Berets, it's because it's a little bit of a soul that element comes into play. So if you sit here and you're going to tell me that, you know, being 100% bought in all the time is going to help you, I think most of the time it's going to do the opposite. You're going to be so tense. You're going to be so worried about this, this attachment to winning, this attachment to success that you're going to lose. You can't have an attachment to winning.
Right.
You know what I mean? Once you are so attached to one thing, like you're going to lose. You're going to lose that.
I think it's like, I think when I look back like that, you know, it was a level of cowboy. You know, like I could go to the diving pool and I stayed up all night and I would be doing dives.
I got my Gaffey Gold, the badge.
Yeah.
I was hammered drunk. I was 20 years old. It was the first night that I got into a bar at Clarion. Was the one down by
Toby Hill?
No, it was down past that. I can't remember.
University Inn.
Yes.
The UI.
Yeah. Jacob Mackey took me in there and I'm like, dude, I got to be up early to do this, and it was like
this army thing,
a series of like pretty rigorous like events.
Had to swim and do a ruck and shoot a pistol.
Yeah. And dude, I got a fucking gold.
You got a gold to the Gaffey. That's great.
Yeah, and Austin, Mike, and Waters. Waters now an Army Ranger. He didn't even get. He messed up on the Beretta.
Waters, you freaking nerd. I know he's probably watching this right now.
They were so mad because every event, like I was so hungover and like kind of borderline drunk that like. The 800 meter run, I was literally crossing the finish line. It was like 0.05 seconds left before like the time ran out.
Yeah.
So it's like I just was skinning by, and dude, when I had this pistol, the guy that was standing beside me, the cadre, I never shot a Beretta before, so I didn't understand the trigger pull.
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
And
that's a little wild.
Yeah, I had it aimed right at the chest, and when I pulled the trigger, like I like looked at the gun, I'm like, it didn't go. And then I just squeezed it a little bit harder as I was looking at it. And it shot me back, like, and I hit it right here. And the cadre member looks at me, he goes, what the fuck's your problem, dude? And I was like, you know, you're always like worried, you know, going through as like a cadet or like a private that you're going to mess up because they're always going to fucking harass.
It's just like constantly like in the back of your head.
Yeah, it's horrible. And it's like, so you're trying not to make mistakes so much that like, of course, of all people, like I'm going to make the mistake. Yeah. I know that. But yeah, they were so mad when I got that. But yeah, that element of cowboy comes into play. Like, I think sometimes like it helps you just testing your stress.
Yeah.
You respond under stress. I mean, because at the end of the day, working hard only gives you a chance. Mm-hmm. It doesn't guarantee you shit. I know some of the guys, they work so hard. They're the hardest workers. And then they just, when the lights came on, it's like, you know, they just panicked, dude.
I think that's one thing that I learned in my sport,
let it fly.
And you probably did too. Like I'm pretty good under pressure, and that's why I like competing. I like the feeling of pressure, and as an adult, not competing as an athlete full time for anything, I don't get pressure, so I put myself in. I sign up for shit.
Yeah, you have to do it.
Yeah, because there's like no way to kind of test like really what you're doing. Because like all of the times in the gym are great, and I appreciate them, and I like it. Like that's my daily habits, but putting yourself like feeling the thumb getting pushed down on you is like good. And especially at like the tactical games event was like a good example because it was like it was tough, it was strenuous, you were tired, and there's 7 events in a weekend. So it's kind of like the GAFB, you know, I mean, it's like the same kind of deal. And I kind of miss that. So I'm sure you get that out of fighting for MMA. I mean, that's got to be the biggest, like, I don't know what it's like to be in a cage with that. That has to be the most insane feeling to be in a fucking cage with somebody.
I mean, it's like,
like, I feel like I'd just black out. I'd be like, I don't know what happened.
Each time you do it, your mind's in a different spot, you know, depending on, I guess, like where you're at in your life, like what you're going through in your personal life is kind of the way I think you approach the fights. So the best guys in the world are the guys that are real calm and composed, and you don't even know. Like, they could be crying on the inside, or they could be like, they could be ready to go on the inside. So it's like they don't show their cards. But it's pretty exhilarating. I just focus on breathing, and I just know that, I don't know, it's what I'm supposed to be doing. When I walk in there, like my last fight, I wasn't prepared for it. There was a lot of people around me that, you know, weren't looking out for my best interest. A lot of things fell through. I shouldn't have been in there competing at that point. You know, I was off the couch practically. The guy I fought was world class. I don't fight guys at the level most guys in this area fight at. I fight at the highest level. You know, I fought a guy that was 5-0. Now he's 5-0. He just fought in front of Dana White on Unify's card. That was Dana White finding a fight. You know, the guy's gonna go to the UFC.
Yeah,
he's a couple weight classes heavier. I think he was on GH. Definitely the way he felt. He was a kickboxer that out wrestled me, and it was just, he was so strong. It was unbelievable. It was a 10 in strength. And he felt like he was enhanced, but I guess the moral of the story is I just wasn't prepared mentally. It was the only fight that I've ever won into in my life that I didn't care if I won or lost. And I was, you know, that was one of my goals. Obviously, sometimes it's inevitable. You know, it's fighting. The margin for error is so small, it's unbelievable. But, you know, the people around me shouldn't have, you know, put me in that situation. And that's where, you know, having a team comes into play. But when you do that, you realize that you're the only motherfucker in there. You know what I mean? Nobody's fighting with you.
Yep.
So like a lot of the responsibility you have to take upon yourself. And then also, regardless if you're ready or not, or you're injured or you're scared or you're tired or you're energetic, you know, whatever result comes is on you. It's on nobody else. Even if it is somebody else's fault in a way, you know, you're the one that put yourself in there and you're the one that chose to do it. So you got to roll with it. Right. And that's what's hard about fighting. I feel like for me is you got to put yourself out there. I mean, I'm pretty like confident with what I say. I mean, I'm not afraid to put myself out there. I think there's an element of respect that you have to have for guys like that, because we're fighting professionals. I mean, they're professional fighters. I mean, regardless if they're good, I mean, there's always a chance they can beat you, right? There's always a chance that there's a mental lapse and judgment, and something happens where you're not where you thought you would be, right? So I think that just like the military, I could never understand backwards planning in the military until I fought. And then I started thinking, okay, how do I get out of this if I end up in this position? And I put myself in my head in the worst possible position I could be in. Okay, I just got rocked. I'm on my back. He's on top of me in full mount. What do I do? You know, and now how do I simulate that? So like sometimes no sleep, you know, or if I'm hungover, that's my best training for that, you know, specific scenario, because I'm tired as fuck. My head's dizzy, right? Like I'm not in the elements I should be. Now that's obviously sounds crazy, right? And it's not something you do habitually, like I said, but if you can get 1 or 2 of those sessions in a year, I think that if that ever happens, which it's unlikely, but if it does happen, you might be able to find your way out of it.
Right.
Right. I mean, and like, that's the way I think about fighting, because fighting is so sporadic. It's so crazy. There's so many options. There's so many ways to win that don't call that crazy. Right? Because you're fighting a guy in a cage. There's no fucking security, dude. This is, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many ways to win. There's so many ways to lose. So ultimately, I think it comes down to just being deliberate, you know, and being confident. But it's hard when you put yourself out there like that, you know?
Well, that's all it really is, right? Is like, I mean, I think competing in general, like you mentioned, like not having an attachment to winning. when I was in college, my 5th year, I played at Division II Westchester, and we went to the national championship, and like we lost in the national championship. And that's something that like everyone wants to do. Like everyone wants to get to the national stage.
I didn't know that's awesome.
And be at the final, right?
Yeah.
And I never thought I'd get the opportunity to do that because, you know, at Pitt, the time I was there, like I was a 3rd string goalkeeper. I wasn't playing. We weren't even going to compete in the national tournament because we weren't that good. Going to Westchester, they're like a national tournament team, but I never thought we'd go to the final, right? I mean, you want to, but you have to know what you're up against. And then the next thing you know, like we're playing in the national semifinal, which is here in Pittsburgh, played in the championship at where the Riverhounds play in Pittsburgh. And, you know, I always thought, I was like, oh, if I get to the championship, I'll just, you know, you don't think about losing in the national championship, right? Like, it's like, you're like, if you're going to get there, you might as well win it, right? But like, that's not how it is. Like, someone's got to lose.
Yeah.
And so, like what you said about attachment to winning, like I think about that, and just, it's almost like just the fact of just being willing to step onto the stage and
just let it happen
and win or lose. Yeah. Like that's really all it is, you know? And I think there's people still that think like, oh, like, you know, we fucked up our chance, like winning the national championship. And like now being 5 years removed from it, I'm like, the fact that we were there alone and we're willing to just, you know, duke it out like in that 90 minutes, like that's really all it is about. Like it's another game at that point. Like it's not really, there's a trophy, you got your name on a board, but.
And that's how you know that I think that's how you know you're like super high level and athletic, is that I have a crazy attachment to winning. I want to win more than anything. When I go in, I'm doing this, like I'm training my brain to think this way because I want to win.
Right, I agree.
Right? So it's the
like
same
you
way.
still
So like
it doesn't mean you don't. I don't think it means you don't want to win. Like I mean, I'm still distraught.
It takes you out of if it takes your mind away from focusing on the event before the event happens. I can't wrestle a mat if I wrestle the national tournament or if I fight June 29th, I can't do anything about it right now besides train. I can control what I can control today. That's it. I cannot control the outcome of the fight.
Yeah.
So understanding that, like, it's the same thing. I think, I don't know, maybe that's what I'm trying to say. Like, that you were thinking, you know, when you're at that high of a level, it's like, I don't want to think about this fucking game until it's time to think about it, because once I'm there, like, I've been doing this my whole life. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I just got to play as hard as I can and just focus on step-by-step positional battles. If I do that, we got a chance to win. If everybody does their job, which is hard with team sports.
Absolutely. Right. And that's the piece of it too. And, you know, being on the field with 11 or 10 other guys, you know, like you're not in control of everything like you are in an individual sport. Like, I mean, you have a team that works with you in an individual sport still, but when you're out there, it's you, and like you're making the decisions, like you're going through the process. But when you're out there with 10 other guys, right, like everyone has to do their job. And
I never did good with that because there's always one guy that's like taking it off.
Right, and that's how I feel now. Like, I'm like, I don't want team sports anymore.
He's like, no team sports unless it's just for fun. But
yeah, I mean, I still play soccer and I still want to win. I play in a men's league.
I can't do the team thing. Like, I mean, like I couldn't do slow pitch softball.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be better if I just sat and watched and hung out with my buddies and like, because like, I think it would be fun. But I'd be in a fight. You know what I mean? Because like somebody would be saying something and it's like, all right, dude, we're playing softball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like now it's actually a challenge. Like, and that's just like, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah. There is a level to it. I think now it like playing soccer now and, you know, in men's league, like this shit doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter.
Though, or you wouldn't be doing it.
No, right.
That's how I think.
That's the thing.
I gotta win though. You know what I mean?
If I'm going to play a game, the second I step across the line, like, that's the only 90 minutes that matters. Like I'm still going to try and win that entire time. Like that's in the moment. Like this is like I'm more dialed back than I used to be when I was in college. But like I still
take a different approach, is what you're saying. That's what I do.
I think
talk a little shit, get in their head a little bit so you can go lighter.
Yeah. After though, like it's not going to ruin my week if I don't win a men's league game. But when I'm in the moment,
are you coming back next week? Hard.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like
I'm still coming back. It did ruin your week though, because you're thinking about it.
I'm not gonna. It's not my
World
Cup. It's not my World Cup. I'll put it that way. Like,
it's not your world anymore.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean?
It's
like you're like removed from like what it used to be.
Yeah. There's a weird distinction, and it's hard to. I think it's hard to even explain, because then it sounds like there's like a carelessness to it, but there's not. Like there's still the effort, there's still the desire to win, but you do run into people that maybe never actualize their careers, that this is like now this is the only thing left they have to then express that desire to be the best, and then they're like the ones that are going in knee height tackles and like doing stupid shit, where I'm like, I've done that, you know, like I've competed at the level I was able to like showcase what I could do on the stage that mattered. Here I'm not going to like, you know, get injured over a men's league game.
Yeah.
But do I still want to win? Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
So there's a weird push-pull involved in that, and it is hard to navigate.
That's why, I mean, I see exactly what you mean. That's why I try to stay away from it, because like when I compete, I'm going in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if I get hurt doing it, fuck it.
Yeah.
Like I got to compete to win, but that's a hard thing. I mean, that shows like that you have no ego. That's very important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why I just stick with jiu-jitsu and MMA and wrestling. It's just like, that's what I know. And it allows me to kind of understand that perspective. You know, it's
Like I said, what I've noticed since 30 is, the injuries I've had in the past start cropping up slowly. So now I do warm-ups most of the time before I come to CrossFit. I do a warm-up at home for like 5-10 minutes, and then I go to CrossFit. And I push it at CrossFit, but sometimes I won't. I'll be like, I'm a little bit like feeling weird in my neck, so I'm like, I'm not gonna push it too hard like right now.
yeah, it's knowing your body.
Yeah, I think I know it so much better. Like when I was in my young 20s, I didn't know it, and I could push it and recover it really well, but I didn't know
Or
it.
you do know, and you're like, fuck, dude, I'm banged up, and it's
You just gotta do whatever.
somebody's yelling at you. And,
Yeah.
gotta go harder. Fuck, dude, like I'm hurt right now. You know, but no, I think that's the best thing about getting older and training is it's on you.
Yeah.
You just like, I said, it's like the mindset of like understanding how much I know now. Like I wish I could take that part of my brain and put it into how good I could recover. But
Recovery is the most important thing.
yeah, like, well, I mean, I could just recover better when I was younger. Like now, you know, two days of sleep, of like no sleep, I feel it pretty hard. Not like it won't kill me, but like I feel it. But I used to, whole week, no sleep, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Training for SF too, I can still do the same thing. Sleep kills me, man. Yeah.
That's my bugaboo. I hibernate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's how many fights have you had now?
This will be my third pro.
Third pro.
Yeah.
Okay.
My amateur career, I didn't have many fights. I had 2 fights.
Okay.
MMA. I feel like I was at such a high level going into it. I needed to understand the pace. Ultimately, like when you get into the first couple of times, like the blood pump that you get in your forearms alone, like when they put the wraps on and you're punching and you're kicking and you're wrestling and you're in a clinch, it's like, you know, you're squeezing things and you don't even realize it. And then before you know it, it's like you have like these wraps on your hands that are so tight that the circulation is cutting off. So, you know, then you get to a point where you can't really feel your arms. So then you have to rely on your technique and your hips and actually like the proper way to produce, you know, power. But it's nerve-wracking at first. But even under like those conditions, like not understanding the pace and going on, getting super tired. Like my first amateur fight, I was like just doing everything. Like, you know what I mean? Like, dude, I was like staring him down, like fucking ran him into the cage right away. Boom! I put so much pressure into him, threw him down with a hip toss, stapled his arm down with my shin, switched it to the other leg, went to a Kimura, then I went to a Darce, then I went to a rear naked choke. Then before I knew it, he reversed me. I was on my back. I threw a triangle, and then I did an omoplata. It's like, dude, I was just trying to like do everything I practiced, and I didn't get one of them. And I was like so close on each one, and then I just give it up to get another position. And then before I knew it, I was like, fuck. I mean, I dominated the round, but I'm so tired. I feel like I'm gonna die.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I'm gonna die. Like, and I'm like, you know, it's like the end of the first round. I'm going, holy fuck, dude, that was 2 minutes. But I just went as hard as I could, and I didn't breathe at all. Like instead of just sitting and going, like I do now, and just calm, get to a position, hold, punch, hold, advance. You know what I mean? It was like, you know, I was like a circus. Soleil was playing my blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? It's like, that made me so much better at fighting.
Yeah.
But if I would have lost that fight, like I probably would have killed myself. Like it was like, that's like one thing. It's like I was on the bottom in the second round. I'm like thinking, I need to take, I'm like, Taylor, if you lose this fight, you're the biggest pussy in the world. That was what I was telling myself. I'm like, Taylor, if you lose this fight right now, everything you said your entire life is a lie. You're the biggest faker in the world. You know what I mean? Like I was telling myself this stuff, like honest to God, I was saying this, like people say that and it's like, sounds cliche. It's like, no, I was having a conversation with myself. Like, I don't care if you die right now because like you are, number one, you're so much better than this guy. You just really blew your load, dude. Like, you fucked up. Now you got to figure out how to win. If you got to take a second to get a break on the bottom, then do it, and then get back on top to end the round so you win that round too. But it's like, fuck.
Yeah.
Dude, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I thought I was going to have a heart attack.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, just lightly rolling for 5 minutes, I cannot fathom. Like, doing like a real fight, I'm like, oh
it's like sprinting, sprint for 6 minutes without breathing. That's what I felt like. Like, I was like gasping for air at the end. Like, I was like trying to walk out of the cage, and I was like, my hands were on my knees, and I'm like, they're like trying to get me out. I'm like, no, dude, like, I need to stay here for a second if I can get my breath back. Like, I mean, I couldn't put my t-shirt on. My arms were so heavy. Like, my brother put my t-shirt on. Like,
so it's pretty eye-opening, just like to get to that point where you're like, okay, so this is what it's going to be. Every fight will get.
Idiots.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It can't be like, you can't disrespect somebody that much. Like, I'm capable of great things, but like, until you get tired.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Until you get tired, then you suck.
This is kind of, it's related to fighting, but I was just kind of curious. I started doing a lot of zone 2 training for the tactical games because my heart rate, kind of like how you felt, right? Trying to shoot a gun is hard, like with a high heart rate, and something we don't practice enough in the Army even, but I have done it in the Army a few times, but not like constantly. So I started looking up like zone 2 training and doing like lots of distance of different stuff and keeping my heart rate at a certain level to try to help with those peaks and valleys. So between your training, do you focus on stuff like that, or do you still stay with the sport for the primary focus? Like, would you look at adapting something like heart rate training for the sport, or is that not a good use of the time?
I mean, definitely, but it would depend on where you're at in your career. So like, I think like a lot of people at the early parts of their career, like, they don't develop a skill set, so they have no base, so they get in shape. They get in really good shape. You know what I mean? They can, use whatever cutting edge technology they want to, but then they don't know what the fuck they're doing. So they're not efficient. Sure. And efficiency is number one, right? So, I mean, I've built myself a pretty solid skill set. I should, after this fight, like, it's probably, that's going to be, one of my next, like, emphasis, like, big parts, like, points of emphasis in preparing for fights is crazy conditioning, crazy strength, and then just kind of drilling consistent basics, and just going over and over and adding like little things. Like, obviously you're always going to learn as you're training, like, and you'll add things to your game, but kind of just sticking with like a system and then really getting in good shape. Because I think the biggest part is, like, I'm genuinely a fighter. Like, when I get in there, like, if I don't know what I'm doing, like, I'm just going to let it fucking throw something. Like, even if I just bite down and like throw an overhand, like, I'll get my head in there if I have to. So like, I'm able to adapt on the fly. I've always been really good with, just hitting things that I didn't even know I was going to hit. It was just, I could see it there. I was in good shape. I was in good position. I could take it. But when you don't have that level of conditioning, like, you can't do that. Like, you get, like, it's crazy because your mind muscle connection is huge. So, I mean, I guess like that's where that helps you, like that zone 2 training, but you have to be focused on your sport while you're doing it too. So I think that sparring for me is good. Like, I don't like play sparring, like because I never really try to hit hard. Like, when I'm doing it, because I'm trying to be nice to my teammate, and then like they're also doing shit that's like not really practical. But we're not fighting, so it's like they're not getting punished for their actions. So it's like, but then you can't spar all the time hard because it's not good on your brain and it's not good on your body. And then you also have training partners that, like, you know what I mean? Like, if they hit me or I hit them, like, it's not going to be good for your health. So it's not good for the fight. But I think the best way for me is sparring hard. Like, I think the best way for me is sparring hard until I get so tired that I can't actually move, and then I need to reset and then go again. The hard part is, like, people think that you need to just keep pounding it when you're training. Like, if I get to a point where I can't move, like, I'm not bullshitting. Like, and like a lot of times, like, once I develop a relationship with the coach, they'll understand that. But at first, they think I'm being like a pussy. But it's like, I throw up every single workout. Like, cause I don't drill light. Like, I'm not like, I try to warm up, but then like, I try to do everything like the way I would hit it. In a fight, even if it's controlled and I'm pulling it, it's like, but other people don't drill hard, So like, I think that your zone 2 conditioning can come from like sport specific stuff too. And I work with a guy from Pittsburgh, Paul DiGregorio. He ran track at University of Kentucky, super high level athlete, and crazy conditioning, but then, you know, kind of got a knack for combat sports when he got into jiu-jitsu, and he's a purple belt. He's like unbelievably strong. His ability to produce force from nowhere is absolutely incredible. Like, he's like attached to you at all times. But he was big on that, like the heart rate monitors and tracking everything. I mean, I guess to tie it back in, it's hard when you're at a point where you're growing as an MMA fighter.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the resources that some guys do.
Yeah, and like that was going to be like, I mean, I guess you did answer the question of like, what's your split up then? Like there's the groundwork, there's the wrestling, there's the jiu-jitsu, then there's the striking, and then you have conditioning, and then you still throw in, I don't know, maintenance, strength building still has to be in there a little bit. I mean,
a little bit, yeah. Keep your body strong.
Yeah, you got to go pick things up every once in a while.
Baseline stuff, you know what I mean? Your deadlift, but I would do less volume, you know, 3x3. That's all you need. 3x3, bench, squat, dead, one day. And then, you know what I mean? Like, you can work in some other like accessory lifts just to look good. But like, you want to keep your core lifts, obviously, with anything. You're getting so much from your training already. And the thing with like, I don't need my aerobic capacity is good because if I'm rolling for an hour or 2 hours,
that's a lot.
And we used to go like, a lot of times, or even when I'm coaching now, it's like, because I'm still wrestling with the kids when I'm doing it, and then I train after or before. It's like, and then you're in the gym, and if I own a gym, like I have a bag, if I don't have anything to do, I'll hit that bag for an hour and a half. I don't realize it, but my heart rate's at 130 to 150.
There you go.
Right, shadow box and doing shit like that. So like, that's my aerobic capacity, right? So I don't need to go run 5 miles then.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do just because it makes my feet lighter, but like, it's not benefiting my conditioning, if that makes sense. It's just benefiting my feet moving and keep my legs underneath me in case I get hit in a fight. But ultimately, I like to train the spurts. And in order to do that, you have to have partners that are willing to do that with you. And like, not the guy that's like, you know, you're fighting 3-5, so you need to be able to do that right now. No, dude, like, go, break in training. Because if I go and I hit it, I can take a break for a second probably, because like that guy's going to have to respond to that. I'm not planning on going into a fight and not executing. You know what I mean? Like, if I were planning if I planned on not executing and not like hitting what I'm training, then I wouldn't be doing this shit. So like, we're doing it as hard as we can, and then we're taking, you know, a 30-second break. Yeah. And then doing it again, and then doing it again. Right? Because like, I'm not going in there to punch him, to tap him, fucking hitting him. You know what I mean? But like, and that's where there's a disconnect, I think, sometimes with the way my mind thinks and other people.
But
I don't know.
Where
does
does
that sound crazy?
I mean,
I think so.
I mean, in a sense, I mean, like, I have opted out of getting hit in the face at my age now.
I don't like it in training.
Yeah.
I don't like it in training. But like, sometimes it's like,
I don't think I like it ever.
You don't, well, I don't want to say you don't feel it, because like, sometimes like,
oh, I'm sure adrenaline changes it when like in moments of, I mean,
yeah,
that kind of stuff.
But then sometimes you get hit, it's like, and you know it, like when it's in your nose. Oh, like
I have been hit in the nose twice. Like, I broke my nose 2 times. That sucks. It's like a core memory now, like that pain and
I know,
and like the taste of blood, like in the back of your throat from that one. Like that's that's a core memory forever now. But where does your pro career go? Like, what's the next steps into this? Like, you have another fight. Like, how does one get from where you're at to getting like known, getting into like the main stages per se?
Fighting a lot and fighting to win and winning those fights. I was a pretty highly touted prospect. You know what I mean? This will be a year layoff. And I mean, I don't even want to say it sometimes, because it's like, fuck. Before, I was struggling to find fights, right? When you're accomplished, it could be anything, any martial art. Like, if you got a really high level BJJ guy, you know, he's gonna gotta find fights. He's gonna have to find a guy that's willing to take the risk. You know, when you look at my credentials and what I bring to the table, and like the places I've trained in, the people I've trained with, and the people that, you know, respect me, like, you understand why I wasn't finding fights. You know what I mean? And it sucks when you're training and you're investing all this time and money into it, and then you're not competing. But I got to the point where, you know, I was able, you know, kind of to get those fights then at a bigger stage. And ultimately, it just had a lot of people around me that were, you know, kind of acting like cowards. And I think that it's just like, I am at fault for responding to it, to the external environment that I could have controlled better. And I will moving forward. But at the time I didn't understand it. So like, for the last year I've been sitting. But it was probably the best thing for me to do, right? Because it can happen fast. And people don't understand that. I mean, they don't understand life, I guess, in a way. It's like, I plan on going in there June 29th and steamrolling this guy and finishing him under a minute and 30 seconds. And I mean, I don't see that as too much of a challenge. I think that that's what's going to happen. And that's not being cocky. That's just how I feel. I feel that I'm going to beat him before the fight even happens. And that's because of kind of the experiences and the things I went through in this past year. The way that I'm going to approach it, a lot of times I don't carry myself that way. And when it's time to compete and it's time to, show him at the weigh-in and do the face-off, like, he's going to know that he made a mistake. So, I mean, just kind of get my heart rate up just thinking about it. But I'm going to run him over, and then I'm going to fight again. And the chains that I had before that were weighing me down aren't there anymore. So, I mean, in order to get to the UFC, that's the goal.
What's your, do you have any predictable timeline with that? And that might be kind of like a loaded question. Like there's no telling, but is there some measure of like, I've done X amount of fights.
I need 4 fights, I think.
I was going to say, right? Is there like a number then you kind of get looked more? I mean, is that fair?
Yeah, you can't be winning by decision.
Yeah.
Right? If you lose one or two, like people think if you lose, you set yourself back. Fuck that. No, you don't. Right? You look at all these guys, like Dustin Poirier, how many losses does he have? Right? He's an exciting fighter. There's guys that are at the top that have losses, right? It's the margin for error is small, right? But how many times do they win by decision? I don't want to watch a guy that's got 25 decisions and 26 fights, and one of them he's lost by decision. That's a boring fucking fighter. We're talking 5 rounds, 25 minutes of that. Now I want to see like somebody like Conor McGregor who goes out there and just starches somebody, or like he gets so tired that he can't, you know what I mean? Like when he was fighting Floyd Mayweather, he goes, "Let me wobble back to me corner." You know what I mean? Like,
there's like a level of entertainment
to it
in this sport
level. So,
and there's not at every sport. Like, I mean, there is not for diving.
Well, it's because
I can promise you right
fighting,
now.
it's like,
yeah,
it's a primal instinct. I mean,
right.
What kids do at a playground. It's like,
yeah,
just like get around and just fight.
Like for diving, there's no personality entertainment. I mean, like it's very subtle.
You don't attract the idiots. You don't attract the people that Conor McGregor attracts. Now, Conor McGregor is unbelievably skilled, and he changed the game. He changed all athletics, in my opinion. But you don't attract those people, which is good in a way. Like, it's a fucking headache. There's like everybody thinks there's a fighter in a way. Like, you want me to step back, bang a right hand on a wrestler? No, dude, it doesn't work that way. Like, Conor McGregor was doing it because he was literally unbelievably like trained. Like, he was like, I mean, he had a different approach. Like, he was he's a legend. Not every guy that has been in like one street fight is Conor McGregor, but they think that, right? So you attract this.
That's true.
This group of people that aren't training at all, that don't understand how vulnerable they are, and like that they actually could get hurt severely if they make the wrong decision. But you can actually like look at the like art form and diving, or like something like skiing, like downhill ski, like when they do the Olympic skiing.
Yeah.
Like, it's like this, I look at it the same. Like, the way that they flip is, it's pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I did 100-foot high diving, and the only way that's like...
I'd never jump off a 100-foot high dive. I'd never, you know what I mean? I never would. Because I can't land other than like a cannonball.
The pool, like, you would not do that from 100 feet, I promise you.
I know.
But like the pool is like 25 feet across, and from the top of 100 feet, like, no shit, it looks like you're looking at a shot glass. And that's a little bit
and
crazy.
That's the same thing as anything in
nuts.
Any martial art is like, and the way that I learned this was through having Brazilian coaches. Like, the 3 people that I've rolled with that were able to put the most unbearable amount of pressure you could imagine in one like needle size of your body. Like, they can put all their weight in one small speck of your body. It's unbelievable. And they can pin you there with one, like, but all of their weight that they have is coming and transferring through one point, like their knee, right? It's honestly hard to describe, but that's the same way as how you land. Like, dude, you have to be like perfectly straight. So that in itself is like, I don't know how you even train that, right? And I think people could look at that and in any sport, you know,
like
highest level.
Like the comparison of like, if someone thinks they're a street fighter, like the other comparison is like, oh, like the heights factor is like, oh, like the heights factor is like a way for a person to relate and like, oh, that's scary. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. But it's scary. Like every time you high dived, it's scary, but you get comfortable there.
The way you enter the water, not even the height,
oh yeah,
the way you enter, how you're so straight, like a pencil. How the fuck do you do that?
Well, and it's just the timing of where, because if you're over or under, like if you're under, like
you're upside down, dude. You know what I mean? You're jumping on something upside down.
If you land 100 feet, high diving is feet first entries only. But if you land, you know, short by like, I'm talking like this much, you crack your teeth, you sprain your ankle. Like, yeah, like legit happens, which like you wouldn't think offhand because it's water. But like water at that fast hurts like hell.
Well, I've jumped off like, you know, 50-foot cliffs. Like when we were kids, like we had these big cliffs at our local, like, you know, how many dam. And I mean, the first couple times you land, you're like, fuck, dude, I don't want to do that again. It hurts. I mean, but.
So you have a fight on coming up, huh?
Yeah, so June 29th, in Monroeville. It was supposed to be at the Washington Meadows, or what is it now? It's Hollywood Casino. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I'm thankful it's not there. I mean, it's sweet fighting in a casino. It gives you the feel, like, you know, of what a fight's supposed to be like. But like, dude, it's an outdoor venue. We need to be in an arena for this crowd. There's like, I think 10 to 12 pro fights on the card. There's a card earlier that morning. I mean, it's stacked. Some of the best guys in Pittsburgh are fighting on it. You got some older guys over in the UFC that, you know, have taken a step back and kind of fight. I think they're fighting for the promotion in a sense. Like, I don't see them ever going back to the UFC, but like they have a big name and they have a big draw and they're world-class guys. So they're able to pull guys in and really make it a show and, you know, kind of showcase the younger prospects in the city that are going to go and hopefully do, you know, what they did and then some. But it's going to be a really awesome card. You know, I'm going to put on a show. And
hell yeah,
I'm excited. It's like, and I just like, for the first time, there's a time before every fight where it hits you and you're like, oh fuck, I can feel it now. Like how I was just thinking today, how Hunter Homestead, he's a GM, how he's gonna look at me when I walk into the cage. Like, well, we're gonna lock eyes before I walk into the cage, and it's gonna be like this whole time we're like talking like this, joking around, like laughing, and then we're gonna be like he's gonna be like, oh fuck, like. You know what I mean? And that's what's so amazing that I think about fighting is like, you can never lose that, like that ability to switch your emotions from the nicest guy that has no ego to like cold. You know what I mean? Just cold.
Yeah.
And because it's not personal, but it is, like, in a way. It's like, it's a business. And that's the hardest thing is like, you don't want to hurt somebody and they don't want to hurt you in a way, but like, you have to.
Yeah.
Livelihood. Yeah. It's your livelihood. Yeah.
It's what I want. So like, I'm willing to beat him up real bad for it. And that's like kind of cruel in a way. It's like beating a dog. You know what I mean? Like, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So where can people find you and follow you on either social media or find this fight specifically as well, like online if they're not like local? I would like to attend in person because I've never watched a fight in person.
Dude, they're fun.
That'd be cool.
They're awesome. It's like, I mean, it all depends on what you like. I mean, it's a party.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my things is like, I try to find a walkout song that Clayton Lee. He's the amateur champion in 247. He trains with us and with Indio, and he's like a little brother. Like, yeah, I think he believes in me more than I believe in myself. I mean, he's probably one of the reasons why I'm still doing what I'm doing. He's awesome. He's got the world ahead of him. He's gonna be in the UFC 100%, and I mean, who knows where it'll take him once he gets there. I mean, just unbelievable, natural, and then also works crazy hard. But we had him walk out one time to the Hay song, like that they play at hockey, like, and then the whole crowd was going fucking crazy. I mean, it's a sold out crowd, and the thing is that energy plays into this. I mean, the energy that you feel, it's like almost on a spiritual level, like where it'll hit you. And like when the whole crowd is like singing your song, you have to find a way to do that. You have to find a way to get them engaged. They're all fucking drunk, dude. They're all drunk. So you've like played, like, you know, if you're like the main event and you have a big crowd, like they're all going to be drunk. So just find something that, like, I might come out to Friends in Low Places or something like that, just because they're all going to be fucking singing it. And the energy that you'll get from that is like I mean, it's pretty, even if you don't win, it's fucking awesome. Yeah, it's exhilarating, but you know, just little things like that. That's why I dive into it. But I guess to get back to your question, before I go into another rabbit hole, you can find me on Instagram at TKLTM. If you want to watch a fight live, it's in Monroeville Convention Center, June 29th. The doors open at 5 p.m. I have tickets I can get you, or you can go online and you can buy a ticket, 247fightingchampionship.com. I'll probably have a live stream on my Instagram, even though I'm not allowed. You know, somebody in the corner doing it. And it's gonna be fun for me, and I think that's all that matters right now. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I know I'm not gonna lose the fight. I know that I'm back in a sense. You know, like you hear like, and not often, right? Because people don't ever want to say things, you know, to you. But when you lose a fight, it's so much different. I feel like than anything. Like you put yourself out there, but once you get past it, like which never bothered me. I'm not a guy that needs to lose to learn. I can win and learn. I don't think that losing is a part of a learning process. I just think it shows you how people are going to react to that.
Yeah.
How much they actually care about you, how much they love you. That's what teaches you something.
Yeah.
That's what makes you learn, like how to address them, or like how to handle situations in the future. But like, fuck, man, losing didn't help me. It didn't make me learn anything. Nothing at all. I didn't gain one valuable thing from losing. I gained valuable, I gained the valuable aspect of the way my mind thinks now because of the way that people reacted to me losing.
Yeah.
As if I'm different because I lost, or as if that set me back. As if my guy that I fought wasn't world class. As if all these things, like as if I was fighting at the same level as some people. Like, as a 2-fight pro, I was fighting on UFC Fight Pass a main card, against a guy that's going to be in the UFC next fight. I mean, it's a different fucking level. So when I come back here to Pittsburgh, I'm going to show everybody that I am a different level fighter. And last fight, I was off the couch. So
we're excited to watch.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm excited for it, man. It's like, you sit there and you wait and you wait and you hear things and you just put it in the back of your head. Just keep chipping away. You don't have to be the best version of yourself right now. You just got to get better every day and fix your problems. And I'm a guy that I make a lot of mistakes and I have, right? But I can admit them.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to admit what I've done. Other people aren't like that. So it's like, I just wish sometimes people would focus on themselves.
Yeah.
And instead of me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I focus on me. That's it. And I don't know. It's my destiny. It's what I'm supposed to be doing. It's what I was born to do. Every time I walk into the cage, I take a deep breath and I tell myself, this is what you're born to do. And I don't get nervous. And I think I lost sight of that somewhere along the way. And it's fucking back stronger than ever.
You're coming back.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, we are just wrapping up here, so I could tell that you're in a really good mindset for it, man. And
I apprecill you guys letting me come on. And
absolutely,
yeah, it was great.
Very very excited to watch this fight, and
not so fast.
we'll make sure that this is up before the fight so people can tune in. So appreciate everybody for watching this episode, and stay tuned for the fight coming up. And thanks for being on here, man.
Yeah,
appreciate it. Until next time, everyone.